Well, it is official. This was announced yesterday. Will Howard confirming it via his X account. Will Howard will be going to Ohio State in his final year of college football. He's got a ton of experience coming from Kansas State. That was a good Wildcats team. Will Howard, certainly a different type of quarterback than the Buckeyes have had with Kyle McCord. My initial reaction, it seems like this is a very underrated pickup by Ohio State. And when you look at the transfer portal and you look at some of these quarterbacks, whether it's Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, whenever a QB like this upgrades to a school with more talent, it normally works out and the quarterback becomes even more elite. You can see Will Howard, the overall numbers, 2022, a very impressive 15 to 4 touchdown to interception ratio. And then this past year, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I understand there are people comparing Will Howard's stats to Kyle McCord. You really can't do that considering the talent disparity when you look at Ohio State's receiver room versus Kansas State. And then maybe even the more important thing for Ohio State, you take a look at his rushing. He can move a little bit. He's got a long carry of 70 yards this past year, 9 total rushing touchdowns, 350 rushing yards. He's not a crazy dual threat, but he will run if need be, and you would assume, considering this is his final year of eligibility and based off of the timeline that Ohio State had, where it was kind of like they were lukewarm. They were kind of, looking around the portal, looking at Cam Ward, looking at some of these other quarterbacks before the bowl game. It really seemed like they wanted to get a gauge on Devin Brown and how good he was before they fully went with a transfer portal QB, especially someone like Will Howard, who's a one and done. Undoubtedly, if he's transferring to your program, he's expecting to start because it is his final year of eligibility. So I would say Ohio State probably saw Devin Brown, the unfortunate situation, another injury. Lincoln Kienholz obviously not ready, and it looks like Will Howard will be the guy. When you talk about will they have a QB battle or anything like that, I just can't see a scenario where Will Howard transfers to Ohio State in his final year and doesn't end up starting. So this should be a good pickup for Ohio State. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the portal. Personally, if I was Ohio State, and this might be because of the timeline where they wanted to see Devin Brown in a bowl game, I would have went after Dillon Gabriel. I like Dillon Gabriel a little bit more than Will Howard, but Will Howard is an underrated quarterback. A lot of casual people really don't know how good he is considering he went to Kansas State. And did Kansas State have a single game, on ABC? They just really weren't relevant this year, even though they were ranked throughout. Either way, that's going to be happening. Will Howard very likely going to be Ohio State's starting quarterback in a one-and-done scenario next year. And then they will probably have a quarterback battle between Aaron Nolan as a redshirt freshman. That would be his second year after Will Howard leaves. Lincoln Kienholz. I would expect Devin Brown, if he ends up losing the job to Will Howard, to hit the portal this summer for sure, just because he needs to play at, kind of like Kyle McCord. You got to play. You're in your last 2 or 3 years, and you're not going to be doing it at Ohio State. The only way he could potentially play would be as if, Will Howard gets injured. So I would say Ohio State very likely going into next year with Will Howard as their quarterback 1, Lincoln Kienholz as the second quarterback, QB2 backup, and then Aaron Nolan would be a true freshman as the QB3. But that was kind of like the big domino in college football. And then how about this? This is just the day and age of college football that we live in. Ole Miss's starting running back Ole Miss, the team that went all out this portal cycle. They've got one of the best returning QBs, Jackson Dart. They were going to have one of the best returning running backs in Junkins, and he's into the portal. And listen, this is 1,000% based on money, especially for a running back, especially a running back that's already had so many carries in his first 2 seasons in college. This is very important to understand, guys. Running backs in the NFL are not valued. Blake Corum is probably going to be a 5th or a 6th round pick because of the amount of carries he's had, because of the fact that running backs, they're just not really valued assets in the NFL. So you look at this kid, I'm sure his agent is like, listen, you've gotten so many carries already. You're going to go to the NFL. You're not valued there. This is your time to really make some serious money. And that's why he's probably shopping his NIL around and seeing what he can get. Maybe he'll go back to Ole Miss, who knows, but it's a very interesting situation to see this day and age of college football where these kids, even if they're on a team that's about to be like a big-time playoff contender, who just got 3 elite defensive linemen in the portal, who's returning their quarterback, who just beat Penn State in a New Year's Six game, who's very likely going to be a top 6, top 7 preseason AP team, and their starting running back enters the portal because he wants more money. This is the day and age of college football that we live in. It really is crazy. And then we've got, speaking of this, we've got another quarterback getting a 7th year of eligibility. It's staggering. These kids are playing to 25 or 26. Alan Bowman. And there's been talk about Oklahoma State. Maybe Oklahoma State becomes a contender next year in the Big 12, returning now their starting quarterback, who certainly is a veteran. We know he has experience. My goodness, 7th year, along with Ollie Gordon. That's going to be a wide open Big 12. You've also got Arizona. You know, they're one of the favorites coming into that league, as well as Utah returning Cam Rising. They're always a solid team. They're going to be a sexy preseason pick for sure. But yeah, watch out for Oklahoma State. That's going to be a wide open Big 12. I do think they're only going to get one team into the playoff just because it's going to cannibalize itself. But either way, there is that. And then we also do have an early look at the 2024 Heisman odds with Quinn Ewers very likely returning to Texas. What a great job by Texas if they're seriously able to keep, and it's looking like they're going to keep Arch Manning. So Arch Manning, the former number 1 overall recruit, is going to be sitting for 2 years. That rarely happens. Normally, if a situation where Quinn Ewers, surprisingly returns to school, you would get the backup immediately transfer, especially if the backup is a number 1 overall player. But it looks like Arch Manning is going to be the backup to Quinn Ewers again next year. And Ewers is sitting plus 750. Jalen Milroe plus 750. Jalen Milroe's got to work on throwing intermediate passes, especially we saw with the Michigan game, although Alabama's offensive line did struggle. I saw Alabama center was visiting Ohio State. Oh, no. Alabama center, man. They don't keep, I am shocked that happened with Nick Saban, to where their center literally had serious, aggressive snap issues all season, to where every single game he would struggle with 2 or 3 snaps, to the point where, if you can't snap the ball and and it's inaccurate, it's like a 10-yard loss. It's a horrible play. And Alabama could just, I guess, never find another center. And now the kid enters the portal and he's visiting Ohio State. And the talk and the speculation is that he's going to end up moving to guard. One can only hope. One can only hope. You've got Carson back plus 850. He had a really underrated season. Georgia, they probably going to finish the season ranked 5th overall, I would say, after destroying FSU. Dylan Gabriel is an interesting choice, transferring to Oregon. They're going to be really good. That's their first year in the Big Ten. A lot of premier games. Connor Wigman for Texas A&M. Unfortunate injury he had there. He's a former 5-star. We'll see. Will Howard now makes an appearance with Ohio State plus 1,900 with the weapons surrounding him. Not all that surprising. Obviously, an Ohio State quarterback is going to be on this list. And then J.J. McCarthy. There's a lot of stuff up in the air when it comes to that, considering Michigan possibly facing some type of sanctions from the NCAA, possibly Harbaugh moving on, speculation surrounding it. But speaking of Michigan, they are in the national championship against Washington, and they're sitting minus 4.5. You can just take a look at this game right here. Washington, 73% of the money coming in on them. People seem to be finding value on Washington plus the 4.5. Also on the money line as well. The over-under, kind of a higher over-under, I guess, sitting at 56.5. Seemingly some money coming in on the over, but just 56%. I thought I would show that just to show kind of where the betting trends are in the Washington versus Michigan game. I would expect, personally, Michigan to win this game, but I've been wrong on Washington a lot this season, that's for sure, but that's just my opinion when it comes to that. How about this one? This was ESPN's number 1 overall recruit last year, but in general, if you factor in all the different rankings, the composite, he was 4 or 5. Malachi Nelson spends his true freshman season at USC and now possibly transferring to Boise State. Boise State recently lost their starting quarterback in 2023 to the portal. What an interesting fit this would be for Boise State. The Broncos possibly could make the college football playoff because of the Group of 5 auto bid, Boise State, once they fired their head coach, their interim came in, they played really well and finished the season really strong out of the Mountain West. So that'll be an interesting situation to watch there for the transfer portal. Just kind of a unique circumstance where just a year ago, this kid was the number 1 overall player, at least according to ESPN, and now he could be starting at Boise State. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.